Hello, YouTube! Oh, you're all dirty. Hold on. The Quantum Universe by Brian Cox and Jeff Forshaw. I have no idea what I can say about this. Comment below. Please, please, please comment below. If you've read this and you want to talk about it, please comment. Please talk to me about it. This book is a scientific mathematical essay full of lots of numbers. So the book is about explaining scientific quantum theories in mathematical terms. I don't know anything about that. There is so much I don't know. And it was a really good exercise in expanding your mind and thinking about things that you don't normally think about. For me, anyway. I didn't understand the math at all. I knew that they were equations and I knew what they were trying to do and I could see that they were important. I couldn't follow them along, and it wasn't so much of a problem because there's a quote in this book: ignore the details, it's the principle that matters. So I was really looking big picture at this. I loved the great ideas of things that I have never ever thought about before. I had to really learn the questions before I could really start to understand the answers they were giving. Definitely above my level of understanding. I got there in the end, like I understood the concepts. I didn't understand the epilogue at all. I tried really hard, I read it. The epilogue is a really exciting chapter that kind of puts together all of the maths that they've been teaching you the whole way through into this epic example, which was cool to read about, but I didn't understand any of the maths, and that was okay. I mean, I could probably have gone without reading the epilogue, but it asked me if I wanted more, and I always want more. I want to experience the complete picture when I read a book, and I felt like if I didn't read the epilogue, I wouldn't have experienced just the greatness, really. I'm good with language, like I'm really good with words, and I'm not great with numbers, so I was skimming over all of the maths parts of it. Not really skimming, I still read it, I just didn't comprehend what I was reading. But the language that they use in this book is very formal. There's a lot of really big words, and I love big words, and I felt a little bit out of my depth even there because there were 18 different words I had to look up. I understood the words vaguely and basically, but I really felt I had to look up the actual definition of what the word means to put it in context within this book, which is not something that I like to do because it kind of breaks the third wall. This essay in itself, it actually breaks the third wall. It says things like, to sum up this chapter nicely, we've thought we'd add in this paragraph about. And that really removed me from the situation. I just kept wanting to ask these scientist questions, but I couldn't because they weren't there because I'm just reading a book, which is both really nice and really frustrating. Really, really frustrating. Sort of esoteric questions. The largeness of this book, even though it's talking about micro tiny little things, quantum things, the concepts were so different and so hard to keep a hold of that I couldn't read a little bit, put the book down and then come back to it later. I was at about page 60 when I was trying to fully understand everything that was happening in the book, and I put the book down and picked it up over 3 or 4 days. I picked it up in the morning at about 10 o'clock and I just read it for 13 hours. 13 hours for a book this size is just ridiculous for me. I had to take it slow because even though I was reading quite fast, I had to stop and look up words, I had to reread sentences, I had to read it slower to really absorb the information that was going in while it was trying to go in. I am not a fan of essays. I like fiction, and there is just none of that in this amazingly mathematical essay. However, it did inspire me. I really, really want to write a science fiction novel now. The grand concept ideas just started blooming extra little bits. That's how my mind works. So reading science really made me think about the thoughts I was already thinking about, at the same time as opening my mind to all of these, I want to say global, but it's bigger than that, all of these universal concepts. Also, another thing I kept doing was I would read the word electron and I would see the word electrician, and that kept making me think of Mario, so I kept reading about electrons as if they were Mario from Mario Brothers. This book tries to explain quantum mechanics and quantum theories through the use of clock faces, which is fine, except that I'm really bad at telling the time. Other people is visually easy to follow, but for me I had to just stop and be like, okay, so if you wind it back to 6, it goes to a half. So that is also probably why it took a little bit longer for me to read. My mind cogs had to turn a little bit more, because it goes into the quantum universe, because that's exactly what the book is about. It breaks your sensibilities, like your rational thinking has to kind of be turned off for a second to understand, and that's a really cool thing to do with your mind. To try and understand that a particle is both a particle and a wave, and it travels in multiple different places, infinite different places all at once, is a really cool thing to try and understand, which I think I did. I think I got the basic concepts of that. I don't understand the mathematical formulas of how that could possibly happen, but I think I get the grand concept idea. I think. I just said that I understood quantum particle theory. Everything jiggles, basically, and we don't fall through the floor because particles are generally avoiding each other, just politely avoiding each other. For a science essay, it was quite amusing. Like, it was funny. I honestly believe that science is really important and that everybody should love science, but that doesn't mean that we all have to understand it. I'm happy to believe scientists rather than understand them, and I understand that they can prove the concepts, specific concepts that I didn't even have a concept of before reading this book. My overall vibe of this book was that there is so much just generally, and I think that maths can explain everything, but I don't understand that. And I'm happy to not understand that, you know? Okay, so in Fangirl there's a quote that says, "Do you hate it or are you just afraid of it?" And I think that correlates across into this book because I don't really hate maths as much as I did, but is important because I'm not as afraid of maths anymore. Perhaps I'm afraid that I don't understand it. So my hatred of maths is actually my own anger of my inability to understand it. And I think if I kept at it hard enough and I really challenged myself and dedicated my entire life to understanding maths, I probably could eventually start to understand. But that is not something I want to do. I mean, I understand the concept. Why do I have to understand the mathematical formula of getting to that concept? Once I accepted that, I was much happier to read the book. Like, it still scares me that there's concepts up there that I just cannot grasp, but I'm not going to dedicate my life to understanding that knowledge. And I'm really glad there are scientists out there doing that. Now we have computers and all of this new technology. I don't need to know the mathematical formula of the probability of a black hole. I don't even know if that's a thing. So that was my review of The Quantum Universe, the book about that anyway. Read this book if you want your mind to be blown. If you haven't read this book and you're thinking about reading it, and then you read it, please tell me about this book. I'm not a science nerd, and I feel like I probably am now. Thank you so much for the book recommendation, Dom. I would not call this a casual book. I would call this an in-depth, formal, I want to learn about science book. Which is fine, people are interested in that. Read it, go ahead. It's not easy. Span out. I'm gonna put the book on the shelf now. And thank you so much for watching my video.